Hello, welcome to What Are You Reading, a podcast with the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County. My name is Christy.
And I'm Katie.
And this month we are partnering with the NEA Big Read, the National Endowment for the Arts grant that we so amazingly were awarded thanks to the help of Jamie Lynn Smith-Fletcher. We are celebrating Sandra Cisneros. And specifically this month, we're going to be talking about the house on Mango Street. And as you can tell by my tabbies, I got a lot to talk about. But I thought we would start with Katie because she's going to explain a little bit about how this book is written.
Yeah, so when I first encountered this book, I was in high school. And my teacher at the time referred to the individual things as vignettes because it's not all the time that something happens. But, and they're not, when you read it, they're not connected, but they are connected. So there is, if you happen to get one of our copies, that's the 25th anniversary, there's an essay at the beginning that Cisneros writes about her writing this book. Highly recommend reading that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You definitely get like where she was going with it. And that's how I found out what she calls this book. And she said it was a short story cycle, which according to Wikipedia could also be called a story sequence or composite novel. And it's a short story collection in which the narratives are specifically composed and arranged with the goal of creating an enhanced or different experience when reading the group as a whole as opposed to the individual parts. So there isn't that first this happens, then this happens that we might get from a novel. But if you read the whole thing, the themes come up again and again. Characters come up again and again.
Yeah.
So, and I will say, reading this the second time, I understood it a lot better. When I was 15, I hadn't read any books like this before, and I was like, what in the world is happening right now?
Yeah, I'm sure. We didn't cover this in school, unfortunately. I wish we had. But I will say that our main character, her name is Esperanza. And so we're getting a picture of the house on Mango Street, her neighborhood, from her perspective. And we're covering her in her childhood / young teen
I think
years.
That's fair.
And so as it being her age in school and reading this versus being an adult and reading it, I'm sure very different experience.
Yeah, and especially like we had talked about off camera, Christy and I both come from rural backgrounds. So, and House on Mango Street is a more urban. So, yeah, without having the life experience that I have now, it's like I don't understand. I don't understand how things are supposed to work. And I was basically taught that the city was a very scary place. So, and I did see that a little bit in the book. Yeah,
you definitely, one of the short stories, Esperanza talks about how people would come into their neighborhood and be terrified and think it was scary. But they felt very safe. But when they would go to a neighborhood that was other, whether it be a different skin tone or a different class, they felt scared as well. So there was definitely things that almost every vignette I could find something that I could relate to. Even as a someone who's in their late 30s from rural America, from the Midwest, small town, you could definitely find things to relate to in this.
Yeah, it's definitely a coming of age story for a young woman, which and this book was written in the 80s. We're children of the 80s.
Yeah, we are.
So yeah, there is a lot to relate to, even though you might not have had this exact life experience.
Yeah.
So, and one of the I too have a lot of tabs.
Yeah.
Which I think rather than me talking and you talking, we probably should just go back and forth off of what...
We're really excited about this one because it is our first time.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of hinted at that in our last video. This is our first time getting to talk about the same book, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that struck me, and I know we talked about it before we got on camera, is the kind of transition from being girl to woman and not really knowing how to navigate that, or knowing that she should be anxious about what's happening. So one of the ones that struck me was hips.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So she's playing double dutch with her friends, and they have they practice wiggling their hips, and they're talking about like how you should do it, and it's like, you don't need to know that right now. it's
like this rush to grow up.
Yes, and I think that is probably in part because there are so many people that she talks to on Mango Street that are married women, that are homemakers. That's what they do. So, and we don't ever know if Esperanza necessarily aspires to that, but that's certainly a big part of her experiences.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that she's fighting between those two, what she's raised with and what she wants, because her dreams were never the house on Mango Street. And that wasn't her parents' dreams either. They had dreamed about the house in the country with the white picket fence. And they are finally able to buy their own home, but it's in the city. It's very close to other houses. It's small. It doesn't have the staircase that Esperanza envisions, that, you know, she's seen on television, that we all kind of grew up with, you know, especially in the 80s, these sitcom houses.
Yeah, the typical American dream.
Absolutely. So even though it's an amazing thing that they are homeowners at this time when it's hard for anyone to get a home loan, it isn't exactly, you know, what they wanted. And not even close to what they wanted.
Yeah.
And Esperanza wants her own home and her own career. And I think that she really talks about seeing these female characters in her life that, like, she brings up her grandmother, who she is named after, and that's a very important one. Short story in the book is the importance of her name. And her grandmother, she is named after, was married off in a rather uncomfortable way, and Esperanza is hoping that kind of that bad luck almost doesn't follow her. So I kind of felt like towards the end of the book, we get that view of her saying, I'm going to go, but I'll be back.
Yeah, and that's what the last short story in the book, which we won't really get into because you need to read it.
Yes, you've got to read this.
It is very much like, this is my life, and this is how I'm choosing to take the cards that I'm dealt and use them.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. Reading the essay at the beginning that explains how Cisneros writes House on Mango Street. My tab, what I took away from that, I wrote patchwork. That it is like a patchwork of her life experiences. So she is not Esperanza, but this is a character that she used her own experiences in the different neighborhoods that she grew up in to create this child. That although we have some very adult themes, we do have, I should say, trigger warnings for very well written domestic issues that, you know, she's able to still make you feel comfortable, and like this person, Esperanza, had a really interesting childhood surrounded by many colorful characters.
Yeah, and it's almost like they're almost character essays. A lot of them are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just like, and then we go next door and we meet Marin, or we meet Sally, or someone else. And one of the things that I love, Cisneros is also a poet, so very evocative descriptions, but also very succinct. So, like, you can see how short the book is.
Yeah.
And most of the stories are only a page or two. But one of the things that I liked was something that she did repeatedly with the different characters was, like, for example, Darius, who doesn't like school, who is sometimes stupid and mostly a fool, who chases girls with firecrackers, and just kind of explains who they are in that, like, repetitive movement.
Yeah, it is beautifully written. I am really excited. Spoiler alert, next month we are covering Sandra Cisneros' My Wicked, Wicked Ways, a poetry collection. So we talked about this a little bit too, that it is written so lyrically, so beautifully, that I really appreciated how we were tackling, like I mentioned earlier, with domestic abuse or even sexual assault, taking something that can be so terrible and writing it in a way that is accessible to everyone, that this is something that can be taught in school, that can strike a nerve with young adults, can strike a nerve with full-grown adults. Me being 38 years old, going back to some of these stories, one that stuck out to me was when they were raising money for a bicycle. So the local kids in the neighborhood kind of got together and they were pooling their money so they could buy a bicycle. And things like that just brought back memories to me of my childhood, of us, saying, oh, we could totally share a bike. We'll write a schedule, and maybe we could talk our parents into it if we split the cost. And so I really enjoyed that and wasn't really expecting that. So that I'd be able to relate so much.
Yeah.
It was a really fun read. So I'm really happy with it, and I'm really happy that we are giving this book out right now. We still have copies available. So please stop by the public libraries. All of our branches have them. So stop in while supplies last and pick up a copy. Join us for our discussions. We'll have a lot more coming. We will actually have a book discussion in person here at the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County, main branch in Mount Vernon. In the AB room, we're going to meet in person, and we're going to talk about the house on Mango Street. Yeah, and you also mentioned My Wicked, Wicked Ways. If you come to the book discussion for the house on Mango Street, you will get first dibs. Yes. On the My Wicked, Wicked Ways giveaway. Absolutely. I will be passing those out as well. So you'll have your next book too. So you can then come possibly to our April book discussion. And that will be one of her poetry collections. And so after reading House on Mango Street, how beautifully written, I cannot wait to read this poem collection. I'm very excited to see what she's done with that. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see how our patrons connect with the house on Mango Street. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear from you guys. So, if you are able to stop in, please do. We'd love to talk more about it. There's so much to unpack here. It's hard not wanting to give away all of the good things to talk about. But we really want you guys to read this too. So if it sounds interesting to you, please do stop in, pick up your free copy, and join us for our discussion later this month. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another podcast. We appreciate you being here with us. Like, subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff, and we will see you next month. Bye. Bye.